Hello and welcome to the Blue Ball Report. I'm your host, Digger. Superfvck is off on business fighting sexual oppression in Rome. I've decided to interrupt our usual subject matter for an urgent discussion directed to my fellow white people. It's been a hard few weeks facing our collective shadow. The murder of George Floyd is a tragic and horrific reminder of the continuous systemic racism in our culture. I'm glad to see so many white people stepping out into the marches in the streets, and this feels like the right thing to do. But is protesting enough? How do we sustain this momentum and keep fighting racism in our culture and in our daily lives? While we've been out there shouting Black Lives Matter, are we acting like Black Lives Matter? I don't claim to be an expert, but I want to share with you what I do know about these topics, and I want to invite you to share your ideas and discussions in the comments. I'm not going to claim that this is a complete guide because that would fill volumes. This is just an introductory primer to continue the conversation about what we can do as white people to be allies and to help stop racism. Today I want to cover 4 main topic areas to help start your journey. And if you're already on that journey, I think you'll still find some gems here because I do have some points I'm not seeing elsewhere. The first topic is about inward actions. Personal development work that we can do to learn about the racism around us and within us and what to do with that knowledge. I want to model what can be like to own my own racism. The second topic area is about outward actions we can take, such as educating others, donating, protesting, voting, etc. The third topic, and this is important, is about building a sustained ongoing effort through habit formation and collective actions we can take with community. And for the fourth topic, we'll talk about political actions we can take. Now, before I get into this topic areas, my first advice to white people is to listen to brown and black people and take their experience seriously. I didn't want to be yet another white person standing up and trying to make this about me, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. But there is a truth about white people speaking to white people in service of the Black Lives Matter movement. So first, let's talk about personal development work, exploring and understanding our own racism and the skills we can learn and practice to be aware of that so that we can combat that within ourselves. My first point here, and I hear this time and time again, but it bears repeating time and time again. It is our job as white people to educate ourselves because our education system is failing us in this department. Google that shit. How to be a white ally. How to be an anti-racist. There's tons and tons of resources that come up. There are great videos on YouTube. Again, I think this is a great time to prioritize listening to Black and brown voices. Read the articles, watch the videos, and learn how to be an ally. And please, don't directly ask people of color to educate you. Doing so is basically asking them to recount, relive, and explain all of their trauma for your educational benefit. And they also know that most white people would respond with unpleasant defensiveness, denial, and white fragility, which is just even more traumatizing. They don't owe you an education. It's not their job. Google it, read, watch, ask your white friends. And there are plenty of people of color on YouTube and other sources who are providing that information already. I'm just going to list a few books offhand. White Fragility is an amazing book. How to be an Anti-Racist. Me and White Supremacy, Combat Racism, Change the World, and Become a Good Ancestor. This topic of owning your own racism is so huge that it could fill hours of discussion. I'll leave a bunch of resources in the descriptions below, but feel free to add your ideas and comments below. Other personal work you can do is you can learn how to have conversations with others that are effective at persuading them to evolve beyond racist perspectives. We all know some white people, maybe extended family members, that are so racist they're not going to believe anything that people of color say. As a white ally, you can speak and you're more likely to be heard by such people, and this is how you can be an effective ally. So many of the people that I know and love are getting really upset about all of the standard racist dialogue that's going in on social media, and I understand that anger. But cutting people off isn't really going to change their mind. Learning to have conversations by learning persuasive conversation skills, that is. There are a lot of resources for this, such as the White Ally Toolkit.com, which runs courses on how to have conversations. There are also books on persuasion, such as Robert Cialdini. I want to share that we are all prejudiced based upon race. To some degree or another, we're going to have racist thoughts that pop up in our brain because we live in a racist culture. Now, it's a matter of being vigilant and deciding how we're going to act upon those thoughts and how much truth that we're going to give them. That is where we can break the pattern of racist behavior. We've seen this time and time again in psychology studies, the implicit racial bias. Once we own the fact that racism exists in our culture and therefore pops up in our brain, that's when we can be vigilant about uprooting it. Here's one example. Late night, walking the city streets alone, I feel a little bit of fear sometimes when I see a man approaching me ahead. And I've asked myself, is that because he's black? What if he was white? And then I imagine him white. There have been times when, well, it didn't matter if he was white or black, the body language, the neighborhood, this hour, that makes me nervous. And with that, I'd seek safety. And I will admit that there have been occasions when I imagine him white, and my fear, yeah, it's less. And I think, isn't that interesting? That subconscious racist reaction. I note it. I feel better now. And I realize the fear is not based on the facts, but it's based on implicit bias. And I vow to treat this man with the same respect I would have treated him if he were white. So play with that sort of race replace in your life and see if you can spot and uproot the racism in your head and in your behavior. I also want to advise white allies to allow yourself to make mistakes and learn and grow, but be open-minded and be open to being wrong. Stop being so defensive and stop trying to want to be so perfect and say, I'm not racist, I'm not racist. Say you're sorry. Okay, I've been talking a lot about personal work that you can do to be a white ally. And there's a lot of other ideas. Please leave them in the description. And now I want to move on to the next topic, which is what sort of outward actions can we as white allies take? Well, first and foremost, we can educate others. Instead of calling people out, we can learn how to call people in. We can learn how to have effective conversations that uproot racism. And I just want to mention one thing. Social media is a toxic wasteland. Okay? Being an armchair activist and telling people off on social media is really a waste of your energy. All it does is fill you up with anxiety and anger, and it doesn't get through to them. However, social media is a great way to set an example for other white people to see you as a white person taking a stand and taking action. Social media can be, if you use it intentionally, a great place to practice your persuasive communication skills, sort of a bunny hill where it slows down the conversation so that you can go back and practice those communication skills. It gives you the time you need to step back and strategize the best way to respond. Another point I want to make is learn how to behave at Black Lives Matter rallies. You go there and you support the voices at the front who are the black and people of color. Don't be the one to go and break the law and turn these peaceful events into violent events. Just be on your best behavior and call in other white people on inappropriate behavior in these marches. Except that no matter what you do, someone may not like it. There will be people of color who are happy that you are there and supportive. And there will be other people of color who may be resentful of your presence. And that's okay. But do listen to people of color's voices. As white people, there are much more do's and don'ts on this matter. I'm going to link to more resources down below. Other actions you can do, you can donate to charities, you can support black businesses, and you can look up companies that benefit from prison labor and avoid those. You can support integration, you can befriend a diverse community. Think about what you can do in your workplace. If you're a teacher, how can you affect the curriculum? How can you teach your children? Go to your HR department and ask them for a report on the ethnic diversity of your workplace. When you look that over, ask them, how can we recruit more people of color? Okay, there's so much more to say on this topic about what we can do, and there are so many great videos and resources and articles with tons of ideas for these topic areas for you to easily find via Google and YouTube. And I feel like the remaining topics I want to discuss today could really benefit from some coverage. So my next topic here is about sustaining momentum through habit formation and collective actions, right? We know from research that habits stick when an immediate reward is associated with the action. So it's a good idea to build an immediate reward to your actions. Now, we're not doing this so that we can pat ourselves in the back and say, look, I'm a white ally, I'm not racist. That's not why we're doing it. We're doing it so that it builds that momentum, so it keeps you going on and doing more. This can be simply socialization, accomplishment, or a treat. And the next topic builds on that point because it has to do with collective actions we can take to sustain momentum, right? Being one person alone taking action, it can feel like being a small and insignificant drop in the ocean. But when we're together with many others, like we've been in the thousands of people out in the protests, we feel good because we feel like a drop in a tsunami, and we're energized by the power of the big movement we're a part of. This is why joining others feels good. Working within a group adds numbers, so we feel a greater sense of accomplishment. Instead of one person doing all of this, we see that it's us and 10 friends. Working in a group also adds accountability, and it adds the rewards of human connection, as well as simply having someone to say, here, look what I did. So I want you to consider recruiting whiteys from your community to join you in these goals. Small asks get a better response than big burdensome asks. So make a small ask, like, who wants to read White Fragility together? Or who wants to have a monthly potluck and anti-racist ally action plan? And be sure to build in some fun, immediate rewards with each and every meeting because these rewards will sustain momentum for more action. Those rewards can be making new friends who have values like you, new community, enjoying a potluck or other fun activities and times, or recognitions for accomplishments within the group. I recommend making it a group of white people, and certainly you can open it up to POC, but don't expect a POC facilitator to come in and show you how to do it. And for this next topic, I'm going to talk about how we can participate in politics, and this is voting and more. You know, I get really angry to learn of people who passed up the opportunity to throw in their vote and stop the current train wreck we're in based either on the false assumption that their vote didn't matter, she was already going to win, or she wasn't good enough. And one of the best case arguments I heard for people who say, I'm not going to vote because my vote doesn't make a difference, or I'm not going to vote because I don't believe in the system. Know that your choice to not vote is benefiting one candidate over another. And you can figure out which one it is. So by not voting, you are still in effect supporting one of the candidates. But if you go and vote, you get to decide who you support instead of leaving it to other people to decide to make the choice for you. I've heard some people say, oh, I don't like this candidate or another. But remember, you're not just voting for that candidate. You're voting on the judges that they'll appoint, including the Supreme Court, that will affect you for the rest of your life. You are voting for the people who will set the districts and gerrymander to cement their hold on power. You are voting for who will appoint to positions of power, such as the current Justice Department guy who denies there's any systemic racism in the Justice Department. You are voting for the legacy they will leave behind. So focus less on the personality of the person and focus more on all of these things. Finally, if you can't be fussed to vote, then why don't you donate your vote to the underprivileged? Who does the NAACP support? Who do Black Lives Matter support? Consult some other organizations of the underprivileged. They always give out their endorsements. So why don't you donate your vote by voting whoever they endorse? I just want to say voting is the bare minimum we can do, and it's absolutely essential and crucial. However, as we know, the way money influences politics, it takes a lot more than just voting. So if you can, donate your time and or your money, because money influences our laws so much more than votes do. I have a great video that I'll link to below by represent.us. And also, volunteering for a campaign, it feels good. And it gives you the chance to meet great community who share the same values as you. I'm going to link below to some great organizations that you can volunteer for. In summary, To sustain momentum and be an effective white ally and anti-racist, you can first do the personal work to learn about affirmative action, the history of racism, how to own your own racism, and skills to enlighten other whiteys, while allowing yourself to make mistakes, be wrong, and say you're sorry. Learn and grow. 2, doing the external work of showing up, not just at the marches, but in life, by calling in the racism of other white people with your newfound conversational skills. At work, in the schools, donate and shop at Black-owned businesses, and avoid businesses using prison labor. 3, sustain ongoing work by building habits using immediate rewards and gathering other white people to work with. And 4, voting and getting politically active. Before we go, I'd love to hear your ideas and efforts in the comments below. I'm sure you have plenty. Thanks for listening. Superfvck will be back next week.